we're discussing rural education. There's been a tremendous drop in the academic performance of public schools year in, year out, and it's envisaged that the standard will continue to fall if attitudes and perceptions do not change towards the public school system. Now, the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition has attributed falling standards of education in rural areas to lack of infrastructure. And though government has touted education as one of its key achievements in its Green Book, the picture on the ground appears much different. Tonight on PM Express, we'll go rural and focus on education up north to tease out if indeed government has abolished schools and the trees, and if education infrastructure is up to scratch. What are the issues? Why are pupils continuing to fail? And the discussion is premised on a Joy News expose up north. And before we launch into the discussion, we'll have to apologize to our viewers for the late start of the program. And we'll first play the video about the expose up north in the Gushiegu area. Stay with us.
It is barely 7 a.m. and children of Gushiegu get ready for school. Their parents have high hopes for them, so they push them to school to undo years of illiteracy in the town. Even without school uniforms and footwear, they still come to school. Blackboards are kept in one of the houses, so the children go for it. The boards are used to separate primary 1 to 6 classes. They now settle down for proper lessons, but no teacher shows up. The children tell me.
Well, welcome back. My name is Stephen Anti, and you're watching PM Express. Now, tonight, my guest in the studio is Dorothy Kunedu. Dorothy Kunedu is Education Policy Advisor at ActionAid. Welcome, Madam, to PM Express. And later on in the show, we will get in touch by phone to Haruna Idrisu, Communications Minister, and we also have our reporter, Solomon Jojo Kobina, who will join us for the discussion. You can also join us by text code 1760, or you can post your comments on our Facebook or facebook.com/multitv Ghana. So we'll take the video again and we'll continue the discussion.
It is barely 7 a.m. and children of Gushiegu get ready for school. Their parents have high hopes for them, so they push them to school to undo years of illiteracy in the town. Even without school uniforms and footwear, they still come to school. Blackboards are kept in one of the houses, so the children go for it. The boards are used to separate primary 1 to 6 classes. They now settle down for proper lessons, but no teacher shows up. The children tell me sometimes teachers fail to show up at all. Yakubu is a farmer and currently on a routine visit to his son's school. He usually checks up on him every morning after visiting his farm. He wants to find out how well his son is doing at school. He tells me his frustrations.
He have sent the child to a school and he wants him to become a doctor. And the way the teachers are coming, the other one is now left to the government and then the teachers to change their attitude so that the child can understand that if the way they are coming, if they continue coming, that he knows the child who cannot become what he wants him to be.
Other fathers are also aggrieved. The Gushiegu District Assembly have plans of constructing a school complex for the community, but it is at the foundation stage. Yakubu takes me home to show me why he wants his son to have better education. Yakubu cannot even provide clothes for his wife and children. Even getting a balanced diet for his family is a major problem. He says 2 of his 5 children are unwell, but he cannot afford to take them to the hospital.
He has sent the child to go and then learn something. And now he will go there and the teacher will not come. So he's worried if the child will grow up and he won't know anything and he's not in the farm he can't farm again.
So Yakubu and the wife are worried. And as you can see, they have a dilemma on their minds. Their son, Jijiri, has not been going to the farm, so doesn't know how to farm. He's been going to school. But in school, academic work is not progressing steadily. And so they don't know what their son will be, whether he will be a farmer or a teacher or a doctor, as they wish he would be. I go back to the school and find the teachers now in the classroom. They had very interesting reasons for coming to school late.
Came closer to 9 because of certain reasons. Because our lever in the house died yesterday night, so we want to pay visit to them before we came here.
This morning when we were coming, my quality teacher had a flat tire, so the organizer was not yet in. I have to push him back to town, to Gushiegu town.
The teachers start ICT lessons without a computer, and to make the lesson interesting, they draw a computer. What is this? This is what? What part of the computer is this one?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the monitor that we have.
This is the monitor?
Monitor, yes.
Okay. And what is this arrow doing here?
That's the Kesa.
The Kesa.
Yes.
Oh, that's a nice way. And it's rather shocking. This is the keyboard, and there's no QWERTY up here. I think maybe this is a Gushiegu type of computer. I show the pupils what a computer looks like, and they get excited. To Abdullah Sulemanan, the abbreviation ICT means something else.
ICT. Information. Computer. Technology.
So will pupils be wrong when they write information computer technology as answer to what ICT means? Well, your guess is as good as mine. This brings to the fore the problem of poor or non-existent supervision in basic schools. So who is supervising the teacher? And whose responsibility is it to ensure that he follows approved teaching methods and guidelines? Definitely, the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service need to take a critical look at educating rural folks. Will Yakubu's son ever meet his father's aspiration for him? Jojo Kobna, Joy News.
ICT. Information. Computer. Technology.
Information computer technology, indeed. And that was Yakubu's dilemma, exposing the challenges facing education up in Gushiegu. I have on the telephone now Solomon Jojo Kobina, who covered that story. Good evening and thanks for joining us, Jojo.
Hello, Steve.
It's interesting that you followed Yakubu's dilemma for his son's future to unveil the challenges facing rural education. Tell me how this all started.
Well, it was just a normal routine to Gushiegu, and actually we got there not to do the story, but I saw the school and I was captured, and I just stood there and watched the children track their feet, get to the school, and then I decided to just wait patiently. I had a very tight schedule to run that particular day. But I just wanted to find out. It wasn't the ICT wasn't the biggest story I was looking out for. I just wanted to find out how the children get their education. So I stayed, and then that was what I got. It is something that really goes on in the northern regions, and the children come to school, and nobody. They don't have teachers to be there to teach them. And then now a teacher finally comes in. And then he teaches them ICT, information computer technology. It was a very sad scene for me.
And I'd say you were surprised, right?
I wouldn't say surprised, I was shocked.
You're shocked. I mean, coming from Greater Accra region and having attended schools in areas where you were privileged to possibly have seen a computer. So tell me, after the story broke, what's the update now?
Well, the update now is that the Ministry of Education has promised to go back to Gushiegu to give them laptops. And they were saying that they will go there, they will not allow electricity to be a problem. So they are purchasing solar panels, and then they will erect the solar panels in the Gushiegu community. That community is called Damankong, Manamaya Damankong in the Gushiegu district. They will erect the solar panels so that they can power the laptops for the school.
So beyond Gushiegu, Jojo, were you able to have a cursory observation of educational infrastructure situation up in that community generally, beyond just Gushiegu?
Yeah, I stayed in Gushiegu. I drove through all the way to Yendi, and I must say that it was a problem. It's not only exclusive to Gushiegu. The infrastructure in school infrastructure is appalling, very, very much appalling. And if this is just the tip of the iceberg, we have more stories about education, and when it comes, viewers will really know what is really happening in the northern region.
Tip of the iceberg. Thank you very much, Solomon Jojo Kobina, our reporter who covered this story and brought up the challenges up north in education infrastructure. So let's come back to the studio to Madame Dorothy Kunedu. Thank you very much for waiting on us for us to roll this feature. Now, does this come to you as a surprise, coming from an institution which works towards improving education up north?
Not in the least. Not in the least, because that is the, I call it the status quo. And it's not just in the north. You might think that that happens only in the north. We work in 6 regions. Actually, it works in 6 regions in the country. We are not in Western, Central, Greater, Eastern, and Ashanti region. And in all the other regions where we work, this is common. Just a few miles away from here, kilometers away from here, in Chichewire, which is in the Greater Accra region, we have something like that. We went there, and because the children do not know the computer, they try to draw it as best as they can from what they have seen in pictures or on telly or something like that. But it is very common. That's the status quo.
And working in education generally, tell me what civil society groups like yourself have been doing to complement government's effort in this direction.
What we try to do is to get the people to understand what is their right. Normally, a man like the one in the story won't go to the school, but we have sensitized parents to take up their responsibility, their role as partners in the provision of education, not just leave it to teachers. Apparently, if the parent wasn't interested in going to the school, the children would have been there. The children go to school, there's no supervision, they play. Sometimes the teachers don't come at all. Sometimes they come sometime during the day and go away. And it's everywhere. We have cases in Bronga like that, in Volta region where we work. Every region where we work, we have come across such cases because we work in 222 communities. And these are the very underserved, deprived communities. People don't like working there. Teachers are even where we have provided teachers' quarters, the teachers don't live there. So civil society, sensitize parents, sensitize teachers, train teachers, give sort of facilitate training, extra training, in-service training for teachers, provide school classrooms, provide sometimes bicycles for mobility for teachers, and for some of the children where necessary, because we are very interested in getting the girls to school safely. And it's all, well, sometimes it works, sometimes really doesn't work. We haven't provided electricity for anybody yet, and I don't know if any civil society organization has done that, any non-governmental organization has provided electricity. We have provided water to make schools conveniently safe for children. We have provided toilet facilities, so separate toilet facilities so that girls can feel safe at school and not have to go to the bush and not be spied upon by boys uncomfortably and want to come to school even during that time of the month and so on. So we've tried to make going to school comfortable for children and for teachers alike, but
no, yeah,
it's not working.
I mean, you talked about sensitizing teachers and providing classrooms and other things that Action Aid has been involved in. How are these measures helping improve quality of education in the areas you operate?
Well, with the parents' involvement, as you saw, you know, if parents, it's not just one man and parents are on the teachers, they come to school. They will go and report the teacher when he does not come to school. And usually when communities take it upon themselves to report to the district education office, they are sort of pushed into taking action. Unfortunately, what they do is possibly push them to transfer them to some other areas where they are likely to go and continue this unacceptable behavior. But we also, with the sensitization of the parents, we have created PTA federations. So there's learning that carries on to other areas. So parents are doing better with, they're getting interested and working with, say, teachers to ensure that their children are given the education they deserve.
So would you say these measures are enough? I mean, I'm speaking to you as a civil society representative to gauge the efforts already in place from civil society groups so that we contrast that with expectations from government. Do you think these measures from yourselves and civil society groups are enough?
It is not enough. I think if it was enough, things would have been, we wouldn't be having this kind of situation. No. Parents sometimes try, and especially where they have to make demands of the assembly. Let's say, for instance, sometimes we provide infrastructure, schools, school classrooms, and for our classrooms we put in all the necessary requirements, like the ramps to facilitate access for those with disability, working disability. We have had to put in translucent roofs so that children with visual impairment can feel more comfortable in class and not be teased by friends for not being smart enough, though the children are quite smart, just that they actually do not see what is on the board. But these are not enough. So we tell the people, we sensitize them, you have to take this from the district assembly. That is your right.
You're watching PM Express. I apologize for cutting in like that. Now, Madam, we have been talking about what Action Aid and other civil society groups have been doing in these rural areas. Now, let's shift our attention to specific things government is doing. I mean, government has put in place several arrangements to take schools under trees and put permanent structures over their heads, and there are evidence all over the country. And of course, I mean, some rural areas which have not benefited. Is not a clear picture of exactly what is happening across the country. Tell me what civil society groups like yourself are observing on the ground about things government is doing to improve education at the rural level.
Well, in our communities, I said we have 222 communities, and from what I learned from friends and colleagues in other civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, it seems we are making progress with removing schools under trees.
Are you making as a civil society
no,
groups, or you
as
can
government,
see
we can see government
yielding results?
Yeah, we can see
and
government.
Some really posh schools are springing up, right?
They are not quite posh. They are moving from under under trees, but whether they are getting into classrooms, we saw what we had in the coverage that we just had. They are not under trees. They are under sheds or some promotion of some sort. We are just hoping that clearing them a few in a year, maybe we've made some proposals to, let me say, government, because we presented the paper to government, parliament, and to the ministry during the Global Action Week last year on the number of schools, if built in a year, can get us completely free of under tree or shabby structures, structured classrooms within a certain number of years. Well, we don't know if government has taken that up, but we can see the effort. In our communities, the 222 communities, we don't have any schools under trees as at now. So there is that improvement. And some of the children have had the school uniforms. We have communities where school feeding is going on. We have communities where pupils are provided with tables and chairs. But the main problem actually is it seems virtually none of the schools have ramps for the disabled, which is very important. Already in most of the communities where we work, you have families trying to hide such children, and in school they don't have any support. There's a girl I met in one of the communities. Her legs are full of scars. What is the problem? She says when she tries to crawl up the stairs, the cement scratches, bruises her legs, and the sore comes, and when it goes, it leaves a scar. So these are some of the challenges on the ground. But one of our major things, the things we do in school, is seeking the rights of the children in the school. So for a child who wants to go to school to suffer this is most unfair. So the infrastructure, if the school buildings are being provided, they must be provided, they must be well provided. They should be done well.
Well, we have the Honorable Communications Minister Haruna Idrisu joining us on the phone now. Good evening, sir, and thanks very much for joining us on the phone. Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir, and thanks for joining us on PM Express.
Yeah, good evening.
You responded positively to the story we did on the Gushiegu situation, which we're grateful for, and I'm sure several communities in the same situation as the Gushiegu would appreciate this. Now, walk us through the broader strategies government has in place to equip schools with ICT infrastructure.
Naturally, as you rightly stated, Gushiegu is just one isolated case and a challenge to reflect a country's major malice in developing the future and the future leaders of our country and equipping them with skills in IT to compete in an ever-growing technologically competitive world. And we have responded not because we are doing it for Gushiegu, we are doing so for Donko Krom, we have done so for Bongo, we have done so for Sefia Kontombra. And I can say on record, under the Better Ghana agenda of President Mills, the country will witness more community information centers, which will be dedicated to supporting training of persons in IT and for them to use the internet and broadband to access information and for purposes of research. Specific to the Gushiegu case, what we will do will be to allow the district assembly, I've spoken to the district chief executive, a good friend of mine, to go through a procurement process, identify a site, a location which is strategic within the district, where persons from Gushiegu, from Patna, close to Karga, and many other communities, including that which you related, can go for training in IT. Teachers can be trained there, educational people can go there and also have access. So we have responded, and like I said, across the country, government is building more community information centers. At least I can talk of over 30 of it in different parts of the country. 4, 5 in Upper East and Upper West, 6, 5 in Volta region, and many others. But I think that once you have your experts on education coalition on board, let me state, and for advocacy they can do it, we also think that as government that should be the future. No educational building in future should be constructed without access to energy or electricity connectivity. In order that we can prepare those grounds for them to have even a television set in future, you can teach people when we go digital. And we must be working towards the future. And I think that the Ministry of Works and Housing, AESL, the Ministry of Education must collaborate to ensure that structural designs of buildings does have input for purposes of ICT training in future.
Now, sir, before you go on, you did mention that this is the Gushiegu response. Your response for Gushiegu is not an isolated case, that you are indeed equipping several other schools in Bongo, Akontombra, Donkokrom, and the others you mentioned. But why did it take our story for you to respond?
If you want me to credit you for the story, I will, and for all other journalists who have worked on it. I mean, it's a very poor state of affairs that you painted. Running government or transforming a country is not a 100 meters event. You don't expect that over 3.5 years or just 8 years or 10 years, government would have completed solving the problems of the country. You deal with them as they occur. And I thought that we already had interventions ready. Let me also credit our Ghana Investment Fund for Electronic Communication, otherwise referred to as GIFEC. We have some contribution which goes into universal access and the innovation fund of the Ministry of Communication, which is dedicated to these ICT centers. I'm currently processing over 100 applications from members of parliament across the country, from both sides of the divide, who are interested in having access to ICT training for training of people in IT skills across the country. Regrettably, I should say this, over the years, in the last 20 years, not just under this administration, the communication sector has not seen any investment in its budget. You had epic resources being used partly for CIC. We are now using innovation fund. But to prepare for the future, we will need to dedicate some funds which will go, I mean, even when you are building new educational institutions, why can't you reserve one room as an IT room or a computer room? That must be done. You just don't go and build ordinary classroom block, class 1 to 6, and that ends it. No, if you, whether you like it or not, technology has come to stay. Technology will drive the world. Technology will drive job competition tomorrow. Technology will determine whether you are fit or not to have a job. So as a country, we must respond to that global challenge, and that will take some time. But I can put on record that the President Mills administration, I can show evidence, have done more of the community information centers. Many of them will be ready for commissioning by, some are already ready for commissioning.
How many, sir? How many are ready for commissioning, and when are we expecting these commissioned?
It depends upon when the contractors finish work. I know Safia Kontombra is completed. I know one in Ashanti region which has been completed. I'm told that Yendi is at roofing stage. I'm also told that Bongo is currently being painted, and then Sandema work has just commenced. Laura Nandom in the Upper West region, some work have just started. Gomwa is in the Central region, they are roofing stage. Axim have just finished the procurement process. So, and throughout the country, let me also put on record, government, I will soon meet the press and dilate on this issue. Each region will have a regional ICT center which will be used for purposes of training of teachers and others in IT. At least I know the Brown African was done with Get Fund funding. Through some World Bank intervention, we are doing Central and the Volta region, and Northern region is currently ongoing. And we think that within budgetary constraints, this is what we can do in the time being.
So in the meantime, I mean, when we visited, our news team visited schools in Accra, for example, we went to Kanda cluster of schools, which is supposed to be in the capital. They had only 4 computers, one of which was broken down. In the meantime, what plans does your ministry have in stocking schools which should have these facilities and don't have?
As a statement of fact, that this government has distributed more computers than any other government in the country's history through the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology, Education, collaborating with Communication. Over 60 of that has been done. against a people population of 4 million and over, that's woefully inadequate. I concede that. But we would need, as I told you, to have a dedicated fund which goes into procurement of computers. As I speak to you again, the Ghana Investment Fund for Electronic Communication is procuring 6,000 computers. We have supported even persons with disability with it, and we distribute it across the country on need basis, need and request basis. Some of the problems may not have been brought to our attention, but we certainly will be, by the end of August, we can complement some of the institutions you have mentioned, and many that has not even been brought to your attention.
You've listed very fine plans and programs. How are they sustainable?
It's sustainable. Once you have a laptop, some of the children fall in love with it, and they themselves will maintain it because they want it. It's a kind of research tool. That's what I'm saying, that our educational institution must be made such a way that even if we have to keep the computers in school and then the children just use only when they are in school, that is possible. And we have a strong working relationship and collaboration with the Ministry of Education on this. So let me commend your other panelists. I think that Action Aid has done wonderful things, particularly in my constituency, in terms of pro-poor rural interventions. But on the ICT sector, much more needs to be done, and it remains a major challenge.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time on PM Express. Now back to the studio, Madam Dorothy Kunedu. You had the minister outlining several projects and plans. Very beautiful indeed. Have you observed these in your course of work?
I'll say thank you to the Honorable Minister. But on the contrary, in our communities, we do not see any such progress. Just last year, we had a little study to see what was happening in our areas.
Perhaps you're not working harder, or you're not traveling to the places where these projects are.
Possibly. In one community, Apemadi, they had 2 computers which were bought through levies on the parents. And there's no electricity. So they are now thinking of how to get electricity. Obinkrum, they had bought 2, and they were trying to get a generator.
But you do agree that the problem of ICT infrastructure in basic schools didn't start under this government?
No.
It has been a problem the whole country.
We are not putting the blame on any government. We are putting the blame on ourselves as a people, as a nation, interested in pushing the nation forward. A nation that says it's middle income. How are we preparing our children for the current world of technology?
How are we preparing our children for the current world of tech? We have a couple of your messages. This one from Mamia Joa from East Legon. She writes, elsewhere, people are virtually begged to go to school with all kinds of scholarship opportunities. Only in Ghana that you have the converse. People who are willing to go to school are discouraged. But everything from exorbitant school fees to lack of qualified teachers, yet we expect a bright future, we should forget it. And Naomi Okanse from Adanfor also says, let's not the government just run its mouth around the issue. They should get serious. It is the destiny of majority of our entire nation at stake here. The entire nation is at stake here. And then this one from Lucy Letab Gomoa, she writes, there are much more schools under trees. Indeed, there are some whose buildings are so dilapidated they are even worse off than those under trees. Give us a break and fix the problem. So, Madam Kunedu, you had the minister and we were talking about us, the citizens, taking responsibility for shaping the education of our children. Now, tell me, from where you stand as a civil society group and Action Aid, which has been working on the ground for several years, what 3 highlights should Ghanaians look out for in the political parties' promises or educational policies or manifesto before voting them into power?
We want the manifesto of each of them to tell us how they intend to finance adequately basic education and how to make sure that the funds that go in there are effectively used. It looks like, according to international benchmarks, we are not doing badly when it comes to percentage of national budget that goes into education. But the returns are not coming. So
which returns are you expecting? That the children's grades should be improving, that the schools which score 0% should be improving to, say, 20%?
If teachers were committed, going to school, teaching, with adequate teaching learning materials, under very conducive conditions where you have a classroom which is well lighted, not honeycombed and so somber inside, and maybe adequately housed, accommodated, and teaching and learning was going on well, I think we'll have good results coming out of our children.
But it's one of the things the minister mentioned, that the government is investing in training for teachers and providing infrastructure.
Training teachers, yes, but if you are not committed to something, no matter how much training you receive, you are not likely to really be able to perform. And then also, we have a problem with our supervision. We don't have adequate supervision going on. Look at what we had in the clip. If the teachers were being well adequately supervised, they are not sure of when there's supervision, they'll be up and doing. But they know that nobody is going to come this way. I can choose to go to school at any time and relax and push vehicles or attend funerals as and when, knowing very well that there are children sitting in the classroom waiting. So supervision too is bad. Anyway, coming back to what we want in the manifesto, we want that done, and especially we actually, as members of the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition, we have demanded that 10% of proceeds from the oil revenue should be put into education. And
is that not asking for too much or being unrealistic, really?
Yeah, we are making our demand. It's up to everybody else to see what they need. And in any case, they say if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. If we don't put in adequately, we don't invest adequately in education, we can invest in anything under the sun.
And how is the coalition expecting that this 10%, if government decides to cede 10% of oil revenue to the coalition, how would that be managed?
No, not to the coalition. It's government should put that into education. We are not saying government should pay that to the coalition.
And in making that demand, have you also put in place measures of how this should be managed?
We have made a lot of suggestions to government. We have actually even prepared a kind of manifesto for the political parties, a kind of, what do you call them? Our alternative as a manifesto to the political parties. So we have made suggestions.
Okay, I've got a couple of messages from you, our cherished viewers. Kwame Jemfi writes that a teacher teaching his kids that ICT stands for Information Computer Technology, the future is too blur. And Nana Sika Kwesi also says that government has failed us to go Sabonjida. I can't read that, and you would know that there is no better Ghana. I guess that he's trying to say you go to Sabonjida and you will know that there is no better education. Raymond Eduse says that teachers in the rural areas lack good infrastructure and motivation from government. If these are put in place, teachers will teach wholeheartedly without most students failing every year. Asari also says, when, oh when, Ghana, God save us. Jifagbo also writes that our President Mills is doing well on the issues. Very soon things will be in order. Prince Techi Kalifo says, you can never imagine. Amwatin Kusikweku also writes that, seriously, it's not only about the infrastructure, but the parents of these kids need to help by checking on their kids in school and making sure that they do their work I think this will go a long way. Madam, you raised this issue, and this is exactly what Martin Kusi is saying, that parents should get involved. So from the civil society point of view, how serious do you take parents' involvement in education in general?
Very seriously. We educate them, we sensitize them. Actually, if parents are not keen and interested in their children's education, especially the education of the girls, we just won't make progress. In our communities, you have a situation where when it's the market day, the mother will pick the child to go to the market. When it rains, the father will take the child to the farm.
So you will say that our attitudes should be changing as parents as well.
It's when they have understood, you see that there's a reduction. Just last week I was in Bimbla and we visited communities, and they told us that because of this and that, because of what they have heard now, the parents told us, we had a community meeting, well, a number of community meetings, and the schools also told us that they don't have that kind of movement of children so frequently now.
Right, thank you very much, Madam Kunedu. A couple more of your messages before we wrap up. Clems Keteku says that what a pity to hear that, and Blaise Douglas Boha writes that how can pupils pass their exam if everybody call him or himself a teacher? The leaders should equip teachers and respect their views and stop building castles in the air. It's a teacher who can do the job, so give him whatever he or she wants and stop the big talk. Saka Fuzo also writes that in fact the government has failed totally when it comes to education. Fees have shot up. And Anna Mala Umar Kabo writes that government have failed Ghanaians totally. St. Peter's Roman Catholic Church in Laura still have students sitting under trees.